The leaves are falling. There should be a little nip in the air one of these days to really bring fall and winter into full swing. The bucks are on the move. Fishing is really good throughout the state. And on Michigan Outdoors tonight, we are going to go around the Cadillac area for some duck hunting in the opening day. We headed out into the marsh early in the morning. Joe Delaney was our guide. He's an expert caller, and he has a dandy Labrador Retriever. Punch, you're going to get to see Punch doing some work on a duck. Well, we got some good footage, I'll tell you that. We started off early in the morning, right at daybreak. Bob Garner, Joe Delaney, our old friend Al Cook, and myself headed to the marsh. We're going to take you along in just a moment, so stay tuned. It's Thursday night, time for Michigan Outdoors.
From the rugged shore and woodlands of the north, its history of copper mines and iron ore, the Great Lakes fisheries. To the farmlands of the southern counties, we'll look around again at all that waits the sportsman in the state of Michigan.
Well, here it is, opening day of duck season in the northeastern part of the Lower Peninsula. You can see right off the bat what makes duck hunting difficult. Number one, it's just plain walking through the marsh. Waders are difficult enough to walk in, but through the muck on the bottom and the weeds, it sometimes even makes it treacherous. Punch, the loyal and faithful dog, I tell you, there's nothing better to have duck hunting than a good retriever to go out through this stuff and get the ducks. They seem to be able to work all day. Joe Delaney, climbing into the boat, into our blind, is preparing for what he hopes is going to be a fruitful opening day. We look to the skies. There's not as much wind as we would like. The temperature is a little bit warmer than we'd like. But we have our fingers crossed. This is a private marsh, and all systems look good except for maybe the weather.
You see some?
There's got to be some birds working over on the other side, and I just want to do a little bit of highball calling because I know there's birds working here.
Okay, so when you don't see birds for a few minutes, how do you give them the highball?
Well, you know, we've been setting up equipment, and ducks have been buzzing us, and it's been legal shooting time, so we know there's birds working in the area. So, you know, if you got confidence in your calling, you know, you can do some calling and not scare the birds. Go ahead and do it.
Well, I have confidence in my calling, but you know, very frankly, a lot of these dyed-in-the-wool duck hunters that I see down in Point Moulier and that work that duck hunting or duck calling tournaments and so on, they razz me about my calling.
You do some good calling. They're technical callers. There's certain calls.
I mean, I'm not complaining. They can razz me all they want. I can call ducks.
Right, ducks
I can't win a tournament for nothing. I'll come in last.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of great duck hunters. Excellent. You know.
I like the tone of your call better than mine. It must be more expensive.
Well, that isn't all there is to it. Equipment isn't the whole ball game, but duck hunting is a lot easier than a lot of people think. But taping duck calling, duck hunting, and not flaring the ducks is the biggest problem we faced in the marsh.
Man's best friend is whining right now in the boat because man's best friend, good old Punch, didn't get too much work today. We've had a rough day, haven't we, Punch? It's been a good day, a beautiful day to be in the marsh, but we just didn't have the ducks here. But we have a story to tell you right now. It's about 10 till 5. We have about 2 hours and shooting hours left. We got one duck this morning. That's the long and short of it. We did not have the fantastic shooting we were looking for. And come on down here a little bit, Joe. So far, this is another Michigan Outdoors opening day bust on probably the most difficult type of hunting to capture on film. More difficult than deer.
Right.
It honestly is, because ducks have such sharp vision. As they're winging over the marsh looking for a place to land, we're calling, they're looking at the decoys. Their eyes can pick up any movement that we make. And the problem is, right there where you folks are sitting on that end, the camera. And when the camera is trying to swing on the ducks and zoom and pull back, that presents all kinds of problems. The ducks flare, and we don't get them in. That's one problem that we always have in duck hunting. It's very difficult to take a picture of a duck that can see you. Almost impossible to disguise that camera.
Sure.
The way we need it.
Sure.
The other problem was, Joe, it was a beautiful day. The wind wasn't keeping the ducks moving. The sun came up, and we thought, wow, this is going to be great. The ducks will pour in any minute now. And we saw the sun rise, and
It's been a beautiful day, and we've had a little bit of shooting, but like you said, working with the camera, that's heavy equipment. What are you talking about in weight there, Fred?
oh, I don't know, that's about 50 pounds altogether with the camera and the recorder.
That's right.
And we can't get the camera walking around in the marsh. Look at this stuff.
It's really tough walking.
Well, you can see when we're setting the decoys and when we're moving, your feet get stuck. The camera that's on OJ's shoulder is about $50,000, and the recorder. If he fell over,
It's been a hell of a challenge, to be honest with you.
we would be in big trouble back at the university
Yes.
and the TV station. So we have to take it real easy and keep OJ in the boat for the most part. Now, the boat is where we do most of our hunting. The dog has been working beautifully today. In fact, Punch sits here for hours at a time without complaining too much, except when you're gone, Joe. And then it puts up a little bit of fuss. We went through we rehearsed. First thing in the morning that we did is we rehearsed what was going to happen as the duck came over and how the camera was going to get up.
Everything that happened, and it did kind of, except
Well, when it actually happened, though, when the duck really did come over, it isn't all that simple. The duck did not fly the traffic pattern it was supposed to. The shooting didn't go the way it was supposed to. I guess OJ got the duck falling.
these
but we
birds are
didn't.
these birds are a little bit spooky.
Aside from the excuses, the interesting thing about duck hunting for our audience is how we do it. First of all, we're standing up to our knees in water. We've come out here through a marsh that is difficult to get to. It's tiring. There's
That
no
it
doubt
is.
about it.
That it is. Tough walking.
We're wearing waders the whole time, and they're cumbersome enough. In the boat that we're using, this is a camouflaged 14-foot, what is it?
It's a StarCraft John boat.
John boat is what it is, but it's painted especially for duck hunting so it doesn't glare. It doesn't reflect any silver, shiny parts that the ducks might see and cause them to, flare. A couple seats in here is all we have. Our ammunition is in our pockets.
There's a seat. As you know, the seats in a boat are very low profile, and if you sit very long, you get very uncomfortable very quickly. My buddy Lou Tisha, woodworker, designed this seat. Very comfortable, very functional.
Just get you up a little bit higher. Our guns, we weave in this netting right here. This almost looks like a tennis net.
Military camouflage netting, if you will. I got it at a Army surplus. It's got strips of burlap every 3 or 4 inches, and then we dress the outside with the native grasses.
Okay, now he's put some conduit holders by the seats.
Right.
And these are
4.5 foot hardwood dowels.
broom handles, in other words.
Yeah.
Now this is the camouflaging that we have set up in the boat. So we sit behind this. If we keep our heads down, the ducks from either side, we stay hidden. That's the main idea.
Sure.
Now the interesting thing in the dog work, I'm going to move this back a little bit here,
Okay.
and I'll show you where Punch sits. Now Punch has a special little hole right here, and this is where she comes out when we have a duck to retrieve.
Hup.
Now what does hup mean?
Hup, which is more audible than the word sit, meaning for the dog to sit.
Okay, now at times when the birds were coming around and Punch was getting a little excited, you had her lay down.
Yeah, I want to calm her down. On a real still day, if she's turning.
Oj, swing over there real quick, Oj. Over there real quick. Look at this. Look at this. Oh, we have a duck at long last. Where are our guns? Swing up there, Oj. See, there it goes. Oh, it's coming in. I don't have my gun. Here it goes.
Mark.
Well, what we were doing here, this is about the biggest coincidence I've ever seen. We were just getting ready to throw out a duck to show what retrieving looks like, and it happened.
That was absolutely
Joe, I'll tell you
unbelievable.
what,
I'm
this
still
blows the
marveling
theories,
at
though.
that
We weren't
to this
camouflaged
day,
at all. We were standing
how
out
we
in
could
the
do
field,
everything
over
right
wide
all
open
day
space,
in the
we were
duck
standing
blind and not get shots of ducks coming overhead. We couldn't seem to call them in. They'd flare away. And then when we're standing in the open, the duck comes right in, totally ignoring. Seeing us, everything I just told you was almost invalid, at least the way that one duck reacted, but it doesn't happen very often. As it got towards evening, the shooting improved, and we got several more ducks in the evening, but we had a tough time getting them on tape. I changed, moving from the boat down to some marsh grasses a little closer to the decoys, crouching down, and there was a nice wood duck, which Joe took. The shooting hours end at dark, and there goes a duck down, which Punch retrieved. Tell you, there's nothing like duck hunting. Being in the marsh, Being out there right in nature, it gives you a feeling that you can't really duplicate in any other type of hunting. It involves really some deception, a camouflage, hiding, calling, a lot of techniques that really have the appeal of hunting. Main thing was we got some ducks for a fantastic recipe, which is going to be coming up. If you enjoy and want to participate in all the outdoor activities, the hunting, the fishing that's available right now, you are going to be one tired person. I mean, for example, we duck hunted all day Saturday up there in Cadillac. By 5 a.m. the next morning, Bob Garner and I were down to Shiawassee. We got a draw for goose hunting. We met Dave Weaver there. 7 o'clock in the morning, just about the shooting hour started. Dave called in flocks and flocks of geese for us. Within a half hour, we each had our limit, 1 goose each. It's getting mighty tiring trying to participate in everything. I have Bill Swagler on the phone from the Michigan Travel Bureau. Bill, you're up at deer camp.
Yes, Fred, I'm up here at Vic Works Dry Hole Club, a friend of yours, getting ready for our hunt.
Sure, up in Alcona County, right there around Hubbard Lake. I want to talk to you first before we get into the hunting conditions. What about fishing? Is anybody fishing right now?
There is some good fishing going on, Fred. On the west side in Saugatuck, there's good steelhead in 80 feet of water, which means they're getting ready to come up the river. Ludington's starting to pick up in Frankfort. It's raining right now, but they're getting good results out of the Betsy River.
Okay, that rain, what do you think? Is that dampen the fishing, or is that going to increase the steelhead runs?
Well, I think the rain's going to cool it off. It should increase the steelhead run.
Okay, what about inland fishing? Have you heard anything? Houghton Lake should be hot. I've heard some reports up there, walleye, bluegill, a lot of good
I did get a small report on it, and they are getting some gills. It's only fair right now. There's not a lot of pressure up there because of the honey.
What about the east side, Saginaw Bay? Any perch?
Grindstone City, All Gray, and Port Austin all report very good to excellent perch right now.
For our walleye anglers, you have anything?
St. Clair River is really hot. They're not big, but they're getting an awful lot of them. And then, of course, up north, the Oscoda area is reporting excellent burbot, the poor man's cod. They're getting them up in the piers right now.
Okay, and I know in the UP around Lake Gogebic is hot. We talked with Bernie Yalkin last week, and there's a lot of good fishing and hunting up there. How about the deer? A lot of acorns or what?
There are acorns every place. Right up in the hardwoods, they're just all over the place. It's really hard seeing deer right now because of so many acorns.
Yeah, and the leaf drop is what percentage would you say?
The leaf drop right now, I'd say, is probably about 50%. Color's mostly gone. It's all tan, so it's dark brown, so it's really going to be hard to spot them.
That'll open things up for hunters. I want to roll a piece of tape right now. This is of opening day where I was hunting down at the Lost Arrow Lodge in Gladwin. Opening morning, Bill, I saw a little button buck that came in, and I didn't want to end my hunt right there. You know, so I let that little button buck go by. It was quite small. When I got back to camp, I said, hey, I could have had that deer easy. You know the kind of razzing you get when you bring a story like that. So I took my broadhead out, hooked up the game tracker, got on my knees like I was in the tree stand, drew back at a silhouette, hit it square. Perfect shot. Now, I can count that, can I, Bill?
No, sir.
No?
No, sir.
Oh, come on. I technically got my deer for the season. Give me a break.
Very big until you actually get there, and then they're quite small.
Okay, well, we'll be doing it. Maybe I'll be up at the Dry Hole Club and meet you fellas sometime this week.
I hope so.
Okay, otherwise we'll talk to you next week for an update on the outdoor conditions.
Okay, Fred.
Thanks, Bill. That was Bill Swagler from the Michigan Travel Bureau. Things look good for this weekend. We need a little cold weather and some windy weather, too. That'll be better for the ducks, right, Bob?
Fred, you're absolutely right. We need a cold snap. We need to get those flight birds down so duck hunting can get really good. Representative Jerry Bartnick from the southeastern Michigan area, right around Lake Erie, well, he's heard the rumors that Fisheries Division had been considering letting commercial netters in to net Lake Erie walleye. He went over to the commission kind of in a huff last week, went over to the commission and told them if they did not adopt a policy statement against netting walleye commercially in Lake Erie, that when the legislature came back into session in November, he was going to introduce a bill to do so. Pheasant tip, it's going to be a poor season, but that's not really the tip. The best tip I can give you for any chance really to limit out on pheasants is to hit the state lands. The DNR will put on state lands across southern Michigan, with a few exceptions. They will put out almost 6,000 birds for this weekend's opener on Saturday. Middle of next week, good chance if you try those areas you might get into pheasants again, because they plan to plant about 3,000 again next week. Elk applications 43,000 people applied for elk permits this year. That means your chances, if you applied, are about 1 in 860 of getting an elk permit. Great news from Allegan this week. Goose opener over there set all-time records. About 1,163 geese were taken last weekend alone. That's 2 or 3 times more than are usually taken on an opening weekend. And turkey poaching has become quite a problem throughout the northern parts of this state. Even now, where turkeys are planted in the southern parts, we're hearing tell of certain sorts of slob archers and slob small game hunters out there that are trying to shoot turkeys while they are hunting. It is illegal, it is wrong, it's immoral, and the Michigan Wild Turkey Federation is trying to do something about it right now, complete with a reward program of $200 for information leading to an arrest and conviction. They've also put out an educational campaign that says, "Don't shoot, protect Michigan's wild turkeys against illegal hunting."
Not really any question about that regulation, but we do have a question in our mailbag where a viewer wants to know my opinion of a controversy.
From Saginaw, Robert Cuthbertson says, will you take 1 minute on Michigan Outdoors to tell what you think about this article, Baiting by Hunters Debated? You, Fred Trost, would probably rather not be caught in between.
I'm not afraid of these issues, Bob. This is the article you're talking about, Baiting by Hunters Debated, written by Ken Peterson in the Flint Journal, and it is quite a hot controversy, but deer hunters, turkey hunters, and so on aren't really involved. They got drug into this by the bear hunters, and this is where the problem really lies. There's 2 ways to hunt bear. One of them is over bait, as I prefer to do with a bow. Waiting for the bear to come by using a bait is the only practical way to have any chance of luring a bear in when you're not using dogs. The dog hunters don't like the bait hunters in the woods. There's a lot more of bait hunters out there than there are dog hunters. The bait hunters don't prefer the dog hunters to be running the bears around the woods, scaring them away. That's the issue. But I warn hunters, if we fight among ourselves, we may lose the whole bear hunting issue. That's my concern. Now let's take a look at our outdoor quiz. Question this week is, do you know what creature makes this sound? This rasping sound is the alert call of a rooster pheasant, often made just before flight.
Fred, you said you have a duck recipe that will convince me I like it, right?
You bet.
Okay.
Have you liked ducks before when you've had them?
No.
Frankly, I got to admit, the duck recipes I've tasted have been soaked with wine, overcooked.
That's right. That's why I've
You know, and they just haven't been good, and they've been skinned ducks, like this one right here. This duck has been skinned, and you see, there's just no fat on it at all. It looks like venison.
Looks good to me.
It's the breast meat. Chicken, you know, would be white.
That's right.
But this is dark. You really need to pluck the ducks, and you know, you can tell here that I have not done what you'd call an A1 championship job on duck plucking. I used paraffin and so on, but I'm waiting for somebody to send me a letter or a little inexpensive machine to pluck these
Right.
things. Easy. But all this recipe requires, it's in the oven for 20 minutes. This is what bothers everybody.
That's right.
It isn't in the oven long enough. 20 minutes, has a stuffing here of green pepper, celery, and some chopped green onions. And put those right in there. We're going to add to this only 3 spices. And this is the simplest recipe in the world. We have a lot of simple recipes on this show. But I'm going to put in some salt. And you want to shake in some pepper, Kathy?
Okay.
And I'll put in some sage.
Yeah, but it doesn't have a shaker top on it.
Now that's okay. We want a fair amount of sage in here because this is the stuffing that gives it great flavor. And believe me, this is it. This is all the recipe consists of, stuffing the ducks. Now, let's take for this breast. I've never tried it before, this method. Bob Garner says, phooey on plucking ducks. He wants to get to the table quicker than that. So he said that bacon over the top is just as good. I'm skeptical of that, but we're going to take that breast right there, put it on that stuffing bed. And you see this, I cut the back off of that. Go ahead, put bacon on that. And what I'm going to do with these other 2 ducks is I'm going to stuff the ducks with this stuffing. And this, again, green pepper, celery, and onion with salt, pepper, and sage. Recipes in our Club Digest. I've done this a number of times for people who don't believe what it tastes like because it's going to taste like prime rib.
Now
Believe
this
me.
bacon, will this add the fat?
Yeah, that's
what it's
Bob
for.
says it'll be just as good as this. I'm skeptical.
Okay.
I'd put a little more on that. I'm going to stuff them both, put them in the oven here, and here's the key to it. 550 degrees, up as high as your oven will go on the top setting
550 degrees for 20 minutes. That's
Okay.
right, Kathy. I'm going to finish stuffing this duck, pop it in the oven, and we're going to taste these. You're going to love them. But first of all, we've got to take a look at the trophy report.
Okay.
Then we eat. A little later in the season, we're probably going to have some monster racks on our trophy report, but here is the first one of the year. This is the first guy who called us up and said, hey, I got a big deer. I think I ought to be on television. This is Eric Forseth from Lansing. You got an 8-point buck. Where?
Up just east of Big Rapids.
Is that private land, a cabin, state
Yeah,
land?
it's private land. A friend of mine owns it up there.
Is that a pretty good production area for deer?
Well, I've sat out 2 nights, and I missed an 8-point last Sunday night, and came back up Friday afternoon, and out came a 10, an 8, and a spike.
Holy cow, you got your choice. You missed an 8-point, and you had your choice of $3. Why'd you take the middle one?
Well, they came out through a swale. They went out into the field, and they weren't out there more than about 30, 40 seconds. And the 10-point was leading him, and he must have got wind of me, and he moved into the, into a clearing for about 3 or 4 seconds, and I couldn't get a shot
Wasn't
off
long
at
enough,
him.
huh?
And so I just pulled my bow back and waited for the 8-point to come through, and he walked right through where I wanted to, and I let the bow go. I guess I got a good shot in on him.
Hey, well, that's great, Eric. Think of the size of this deer is a big one. I mean, for northern Michigan. How much? This looks like it weighs 175, 200 pounds.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you with the weight. It's one of the largest bucks I've ever seen come out of that area with a bow. As far as I know, the landowner said it was the largest buck to come out of there, period.
Terrific.
So-
Was it 10-point bigger bodied than this?
Yeah, I would say, when I looked at it, it probably was maybe 10, 30 pounds larger.
Got to get yourself a camp deer permit. You can
Yeah.
go up and get another buck. You can
That'd be
take-
nice.
Yeah, now, let's put the measuring to this. We have our Stroh's Big Buck Awards, which we're starting, and the way we're going to score this, Eric, you're the first one that we're putting a measuring tape to, is we add the number of tines, and you have 8 of them. You're going for 24 with a bow. And we're going to add that to the inches in the maximum outside spread. And we have about 15 3/4. That looks to be about square to me. Pretty darn close. If we can put some calipers on this and squeeze out 16 inches, you'll have 24. You will have the first Stroh's Big Buck Award, but I can't guarantee it. We're going to have to measure that a little bit later, maybe on Big Buck Night. Congratulations on this. One thing's for sure, Eric. Eric Forseth from Lansing is our Big Buck Hunter of the Week.
Thank
All
you.
right. Way to go. And here it is. It looks like roast beef. Look at this piece right here I'm cutting out. Well, it's fully cooked, but it's on the medium rare side. And Kathy, I want you to try that. See how you like it, because you have been skeptical about this all along.
been.
How can you cook a duck for 20 minutes and have it taste good?
She's
Well, I'll
not
tell
the
you.
only one.
It looks like beef and it tastes like prime rib to me.
It does.
Doesn't it?
It's good.
It's good, isn't it?
It really is.
Try some there, Ed, without the fat on it. This was the bacon covering. Now, this is a mallard. Now, I think mallards are hard to beat for a duck.
Well, they are, Fred, but sometimes a mallard can become somewhat of a fish eater too, and those fish-eating ducks, generally speaking, aren't quite as palatable. They're a little more livery.
Your open water ducks, the bluebills, the divers, depends on what they eat, and this is the way it is. Deer will taste differently depending on where they came from.
But your favorite and mine?
I like teal.
Teal, you
Oh,
betcha.
yeah. Absolutely. But here it is. 20-minute duck, and you can see it takes on the reddish appearance of prime rib when it's done medium rare. And the final rating, Kathy?
Very good. It is.
How about the dressing?
Convinced me.
How
Excellent.
about the stuffing?
Crispy, tasty,
Oh, yeah.
very good.
I like it with the sage. It's real simple. This recipe for 20-minute duck is in the Club Digest. We're going to have a new issue coming out just in a couple weeks. The address coming up at the end of the show.
But first, let's go to the Michigan Outdoors Outdoor Calendar. Look for a black powder match this weekend at the Attica Muzzleloaders 40th Annual Fall Rendezvous at the Lapeer County Sportsman's Club. There's a fall steelhead fishing seminar this weekend at the Au Huron Campground in Oscoda. Handgun metallic silhouette shoots this weekend are at the Looking Glass River Sportsman's Club in Langsburg, the Mid-Michi Gun Club in Clare, and the Kalamazoo Rod and Gun Club in Kalamazoo. And our Stroh's Michigan Outdoors Deer Hunters workshops are just around the corner. Fred Trost and MSU Extension Wildlife Specialist Glenn Dutterer will give detailed answers to some of the most important questions about successful deer hunting. How can you make a clean and swift kill? Where do deer live during the hunting season? What signs do deer leave and what do they mean? How do deer behave during the rut? And how do deer react after opening day? The workshops start Monday, October 29th in Marquette, Wednesday, October 31st in Midland, Monday, November 5th in Flint, Tuesday, November 6th in St. Clair Shores, Wednesday, November 7th in Wyoming, and Thursday, November 8th in Lansing. If you missed a phone number on our calendar, you can get that number by calling the Michigan Travel Bureau at 1-800-292-2520. And that's the Michigan Outdoors Outdoor Calendar.
Portrait of a duck hunter. Right here, Al Cook.
A tired duck hunter.
Hey, we started this day just about 17 hours ago in the dark. And here we are again, in the dark.
In the dark.
And we could stand a shoe shine or something like that going to town. Don't you think?
I think so, where you look a little bit disraveled. Or...
Well, this day was predicted by Mr. Al Cook to be fantastic. Now, we got 4 ducks. Hold them up there.
The ducks flew.
Yeah.
The ducks flew.
We had our difficulties.
The dog worked. We did some missing.
Uh-huh.
A lot of fun.
We really expected, Bob, didn't you really expect to be holding up big strings of ducks?
Well, not big strings because of the point system the way it is. You're never going to hold up a big string. But yeah, I expected maybe 12 greenheads, 16 greenheads between 4 of us. I did. I was a little bit disappointed, but they did say that ducks could be down a little bit, and the flight ducks really aren't here yet.
Well, we really don't have too much to be ashamed of. We have enough for a recipe. That's what this is all about, to go home and I'm going to do 20-minute duck with this. In fact, I already did on this television show because this is the ending of the show. You know that? In fact, I think a suitable ending would be to show the star right here.
Punchy?
Here's Punchy. Look at Punchy.
Hello, baby. Come here.
The car's packed up, the boat's on top.
Little bird here.
Punchy's in her box.
Huh? Punch, come here.
Well, Punchy's going to get a good meal tonight, right?
Yeah, you bet she is.
You know, the only thing that worries me about doing a show like this and showing duck hunting like this,
What's that?
well, the marshes are going to be so crowded next year because everybody who sees the show is going to want to go out and get these clothes and get a dog and a boat and spend entire days in the marsh.
Get wet and punt for about 2 hours.
Really, I don't know if we did a public service or not to show what we do.
It's the only stylish way to be in, is to be a duck hunter.
I mean, you got to admit we've been conservationists. I mean, we didn't put a dent in the population of
That's right.
waterfowl today.
Al, do you think we're going to set some new styles and some new trends in designer duck hunting clothes?
I don't think so.